So the United Nations has accused the U.S. of committing war crimes during our ongoing military campaign in the Caribbean. They are calling for the strikes to stop immediately and for those responsible to be investigated and prosecuted. According to the UN Human Rights Chief, quote, these attacks and their mounting human cost are unacceptable. The U.S. must halt such attacks and take all measures necessary to prevent the extrajudicial killing of people aboard these boats. Between you and me, I don't think anything's going to stop.
Oh, yeah, of course, Preston. They have no intention of stopping. And I really appreciated this post. First of all, I appreciate the UN for being willing to call a fig and be completely honest about what's happening. I feel like this story is not getting as much attention in America as it should because we're all doing our best to keep our heads above water, right? The crisis at home is so severe. It's hard for us to have enough bandwidth to focus on what our government is doing that constitute violations of international law. But this reminded me of a piece that was out in The Intercept a couple of days ago. I bookmarked it as soon as I read it, and I was like, I got to find time to talk about this. So this is the time. The piece is entitled, Trump Administration Admits It Doesn't Know Who Exactly It's Killing in Boat Strikes. Yeah, you heard that right. I know that Fox News and the regime are putting out the most transparently untrue propaganda that they are killing drug traffickers who are somehow like a threat to American citizens. There's no intelligence and there's no information that would indicate that. And plus, y'all, let's look at who the Trump regime is. Let's look at what they're trying to do inside our borders. And then I want to share a little bit of this piece with you. Inside our borders, they are trying to manufacture a war. Inside our borders, they are lying about what American citizens are doing in Portland, Oregon, in Chicago, Illinois, in Memphis, Tennessee, in Los Angeles, in DC. They are making false claims about American cities and what's happening there, saying that Portland is on fire, that there's violent Antifa terrorists. Look at No King's Day. They tried to say that it was an I Hate America rally, even in advance of it. Just the most blatant lies. They're lying on their own people's names, so why would you expect them to be telling the truth about who's in these boats? We would be foolish to believe that anything Donald Trump and Pete Kegsbreath say about what is happening with these boats. Okay, so let's get back to this piece by Nick Terse from October 31st in The Intercept. Officials acknowledged they don't know the identities of the people they're killing and cannot meet the evidentiary burden to prosecute survivors. The Trump regime has made a series of startling admissions about the people it's killing in its undeclared war against suspected drug smugglers in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. They're not suspected, that's just what the regime is telling us. Trump officials acknowledged in separate briefings provided to lawmakers and staffers this past Thursday that they do not know the identities of the victims of the strikes and that they call it the War Department, it is still the Department of Defense. Donald Trump just deciding to call it the War Department doesn't actually change the name. That the Department of Defense cannot meet the evidentiary burden necessary to hold or try survivors of the attacks. You heard that right. They can't even arrest or try survivors of the attacks of these boats that they have been shooting missiles at. Such victims who find themselves in the water are now deemed unprivileged belligerents, a murky designation under international humanitarian law. Since September 2nd, I can't believe it's been going on that long already, the U.S. military has been attacking boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific Ocean, killing more than 60 civilians. Trump is claiming that these murders of 60 civilians are permissible because the U.S. is engaged in non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations, or DTOs. Two government officials told The Intercept that the administration secretly declared a non-international armed conflict weeks, if not months, before the first attack of the campaign. Would-be authoritarians always try to manufacture war. Donald Trump tried it way at the beginning. He thought he was going to wage war with Canada, then with Mexico, and like that wasn't going to fly. Then he was going to wage war with Denmark and Greenland. It's the same way he's trying to put troops in one city, and then we aren't giving him the civil war that he wants. We aren't giving him the riot and the insurrection that he wants. So he tries it in another city and he keeps hopping around, hoping somebody will take the bait, and no American city is going to give him what he wants. It's the same thing. He was like war shopping around. Who can I attack and get away with it? Feeling out where can he manufacture a crisis, both a domestic one and an international one. Trump claims he's justified in attacking these civilians because of the War Powers report to Congress that under Article 2, constitutional authority as commander-in-chief of the U.S. military allows him to engage in the inherent right of self-defense as a matter of international law. The Justice Department's legal counsel has produced a classified opinion that provides legal cover for the lethal strikes. Well, Pam Bondi's DOJ will do whatever the fuck Donald Trump wants. Remember, she had those Epstein files on her desk for a couple of weeks, said she knew what was in them. Remember, my Senator Ron Wyden sent her financial documentation with more than 4,000 leads, and she has ignored all of that and said the case is closed. She told Donald Trump his name was in the files. The FBI, we paid FBI agents our taxpayer dollars to sit there and redact Donald Trump's name out of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi, her Department of Justice, it's not a Department of Justice. It's Donald Trump's personal legal hit squad. Experts in the laws of war and members of Congress say that the strikes are illegal extrajudicial killings because the military is not permitted to deliberately target civilians, even suspected criminals who do not pose an imminent threat of violence. The Trump regime has not been able to produce these drugs. Why is it that they would shoot missiles into these small vessels? These are small vessels that many people have said are fishing boats or not drug running vessels. Why wouldn't they send in teams that would then capture these vessels and then show us the evidence of the drugs? No, they just blow them out of the water. They produced zero evidence. Trump's justification here, even though law experts and members of Congress have said what you're doing is illegal, is that, well, we have this long-standing war on drugs, and we suspect that these are drug smugglers. Right? This is very much, for my entirely lay opinion, reminiscent of how Donald Trump has designated Antifa a terrorist organization, even though it's not an organization at all. It just means anti-fascist. There is no Antifa as an organization, and folks who are opposed to fascism are not domestic terrorists, but Donald Trump is trying to claim that label so that he can hunt down anybody who is his political opponent or is a dissident, speaks out against his illegal authoritarian actions. He wants to label those folks Antifa so that he can, send them to a gulag, stuff them in prison, prosecute them, terrorize them. It's the same way, this nebulous term drug smuggler. Oh, I can just slap that label on somebody, especially if they are from south of the border with no evidence whatsoever, and that will legitimize my attempt to manufacture an international conflict. Right, they have that label and then they try to manufacture a reason to apply that label with their new weird definition to an individual or a boat full of individuals so that they can justify their illegal actions that the United Nations says are war crimes, basically. And Donald Trump, I know Republicans in Congress have handed over all of their power and they have abdicated their duty as members of Congress, and they have tried to make Donald Trump a king. Republicans have handed all of their power and authority to Donald Trump, but this should be going through Congress. And Donald Trump knows that Republicans will not hold the line. They will not insist on their constitutional duty. And so he's like, I'm not even going to bother to run this through Congress. I'm just going to keep bombing folks. It's illegal. These are war crimes. Donald Trump's like, okay, go ahead and try and stop me. Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs of California, who is a member of the House Armed Services Committee, told The Intercept, even if Congress authorized it, what Donald Trump is doing, this would still be illegal under U.S. and international law because we are not in an armed conflict with these cartels. And so what Trump is doing is just murder. And that seems to be what we are hearing from the United Nations now. I made a frustrated post on Blue Sky earlier today. Like, why are people surprised when Donald Trump does these things? He's using a known playbook. Like, malignant narcissists, their behavior is very predictable. Donald Trump is using an authoritarian playbook. He's trying to manufacture a war. This is what they do. He's trying to manufacture a domestic crisis, a civil war, and at the same time, hedging his bets by trying to manufacture an international one. None of what he's doing is anything but entirely predictable. We should not be surprised. What we need to be doing is organizing to stop it. Malignant narcissists do not stop unless you stop them. Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Pete Kegsbreath, Kristi Noem, they will not stop unless you stop them. Which is why it is so crucially important that we organize, we engage in the kind of nonviolent strategic direct action, the kind of massive public opposition of regular, everyday, ordinary Americans that will stop this madness because it's not magically going to go away. And it's very easy to predict what he's going to do next. and more people will die. More people will keep dying.